Carson Student Athlete Center in the Schaefer Sports Hall of Fame here in Tempe, Arizona. It's time for Sun Devil Extra, presented by Spring Hill Suites, Phoenix, Scottsdale. Braiden Bell alongside the athletic director here at ASU, Graham Rossini, and I guess we have a few things to talk about today. Graham, first off, we haven't done this show in like 2 months.
Welcome back. Happy New Year.
No, Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.
What have the last few weeks, maybe we'll even go back a month, what have that time been like for you?
What day is it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, first off, shout out to the sweater. Excellent sweater game out of our young Braiden here.
Thank you.
Got to meet your mom, Joy, in Atlanta. Front row, like incredible seats. Also, strong sweater as well, like well-dressed family. So
Thank you.
Congratulations to the Bells.
You just made her entire year. It's January 8th as we're recording. You just made her whole year with the first
Perfect.
15 seconds of the show.
It's all upside from here.
Yes.
Yeah, what a ride, right? And just sitting here about a week after the Peach Bowl and just beaming with pride for our ASU community. And I think the way that the team competed, and we'll talk a lot about that, just couldn't be more proud with the effort in Atlanta. We entertained the nation. We've put this program back on the map, and we're going to use all that moving forward. So very excited about the direction of our overall department, specifically the football season that we just wrapped up, and can't wait for what's next.
Yes, so that is the topic of our show today. If you were not going to guess that, breaking news. We are going to just kind of recap the Peach Bowl and really the entire postseason sequence for football, and then looking into spring and next year as well, even though we've got a painfully long way until football season starts again next year. But that is the focus of our show today. So let's dive in to the Peach Bowl, where I saw it was ranked as the second best college football playoff game ever, behind Georgia, Oklahoma, and the Rose Bowl. Of course, it's all subjective, but I think most people would say it maybe was the best one ever, if not the top two, top three. 39-31 final, double overtime. But you mentioned it, and I think this is the main getaway for not only ASU fans, but college football fans in general. It was the fight. It was the fight they showed. Yep. But it wasn't a surprise to ASU fans. That's what this team has done all year.
Well, in front of 17.3 million people watching the broadcast, incredible viewership. We had such a great contingent of ASU fans that made the trip to Atlanta. I got to meet a couple wounded warriors who made the trip over. Dave Lappin, who's a great supporter, had shoulder surgery. Jonathan Pope, who's a great fan, I think had a hip replacement or a lower body injury and was on crutches, but willing to grind it out and get there. So appreciate the support from all our fan base to be there. And yeah, really proud of the fight, the grit, the response, the resiliency. You name the adjective, and this team demonstrated it. And I kept feeling early on that we didn't have our rhythm out the gate, but I knew that switch was going to click. And around halftime, you said, hey, I know this coaching staff is so good. Yeah. They're back in the locker room. They're going to make these adjustments, and we're going to come out in the second half and really play the brand of football that we've been used to seeing. And we did that and more. And again, what an incredible showing. I think how that football game played out was so representative of ASU as a university. Innovative, gritty, resilient, willing to kind of get back up in difficult moments, rise to the occasion, showcase ourselves to the world. We did all those things, and so just super proud, and we'll use it. I mentioned that earlier, but it unlocks a whole new conversation, a whole new set of opportunities for our football program, for our coaching staff, for our athletic department, for our university, our community, et cetera, and we're very focused and diligent on how do we continue to unlock all these new opportunities.
You talk about the excitement, and that certainly is felt by ASU fans, just kind of digesting things, talking to fellow alumni, whether it's on Twitter, seeing in conversation, whatever it is. Yep. There's that excitement and that proudness you kind of talked of, but then there's that disappointment. It's like, oh, it's so close as well. How have you kind of digested the past, maybe now that you've had a few days to digest that game? What emotions are you feeling?
Yeah, compartmentalize it, internalize it. We can't undo the outcome and the questionable calls, and we'll have a forum to bring all those things to light and find out how do we use the moments that maybe are up for debate or in a big part of the conversation to improve the sport. Targeting being the one I'm most referring to, because I think Coach Dillingham said it as best as you can, and he said it immediately after the game when that wound was open. We need to define what it is, and the sport needs a consistent way of viewing the play, of calling the penalty, and everybody understanding what targeting is, where there's a unified approach. There's not a governing body for officiating in the NCAA. We need that. And I talked to the commissioner a lot about that moving forward, and he's part of the CFP management committee. They'll be together in Atlanta, tied around the national championship game, and there'll be a forum to have these kind of discussions on what went well, and a lot of things went incredibly well on this new expanded CFP, and I don't want to lose sight of the incredible effort that's being done on behalf of college football. But again, what are those tweaks, right? It's year one of expanded format. There was time off. There were different conferences involved in officiating. we need a standard playbook in college football and in all of college sports. We're very hard at work as an industry getting down that road. And I think some of these moments present themselves as a constructive way to open up a new conversation in an effort of making the sport better and healthy as it can be. But all that said, I mean, what an incredible experience I think the nation is seeing in an expanded format.
Yeah.
And now that you think back to the days of it was a national championship defined by pollsters, and then it was a 2-team BCS, and then a 4-team CFP, and now the expanded 12-team format, which is great because it gives so many more fan bases a chance to be in the moments like we've just had and will continue to have moving forward. So net, all positive. And I think my emotions have kind of varied by the day, by the hour, et cetera. It was a long flight home from Atlanta, kind of on the heels of the outcome, and it was. By the time we actually got on the plane, you could sense that awareness starting to seep into the players and the coaches of, we know we did something special, and we know that this team will be forever legendary in the history of Sun Devil football. And even 2 or 3 hours after an emotional loss like that, I think the sense of pride was immediately starting to come out of, hey, we'll be legends forevermore. And that was Coach's message to the team post-game of, if a year ago, January 12th or so, when this team got together for the very first time, if he would have predicted we're going to be playing on New Year's Day against Texas in a double overtime thriller that energizes the entire country about the Sun Devils, I think we'd all sign up for that, and we obviously would have. And so, this team is going to go down against the 1970 Peach Bowl, the 75 Fiesta Bowl, the 86, 87, 96, 97 Rose Bowl teams, a legendary Sun Devil football team that we've just witnessed. And it's important that we continue to tell the story of how it all came together, starting with Coach getting hired in November of 22 and activating the Valley, and then somebody like Cam Skattebo taking a chance on ASU, while ASU was also taking a chance on a guy like Scat coming out of Sac State. And then everything that happened from there, the brotherhood, the culture, the chemistry, the community of support that came around it in a way that helped this season become a reality. And that's the exciting part for me, is going to a CFP has been a dream for so long here for so many of us as fans. This season showed that it could be possible at ASU, and it can be a reality. And so now we're very focused on making sure that it's not a one-time reality, that it's a sustainable reality. And that's a fun challenge to start to rise to.
I think a cool part about this year as well, Graham, is that this playoff run kind of popped up like a mirage in the desert. Even as far back as October, I think if you were to ask a lot of ASU fans, they'd say, yeah, they're having a really good year, but I don't know about college football playoff. Here we are, popped up, and now, like you said, it's about trying to repeat that. And with success comes expectations. We'll talk about that as the show goes on as well. But you mentioned one name that I think ASU fans are itching to see like a statue of or a number retired, and I'm sure those things will happen soon enough. In fact, I know you've already been on the record saying that, but how about Cameron Skattebo, man? I mean, again, talking about what he did in the Peach Bowl, 284 total yards, 3 touchdowns. He threw the ball, he ran the ball, of course. He caught the ball and took on a mighty face mask and then mean mugged after. The guy's just unbelievable.
I can't think of a better representation of ASU than Cam Skattebo. And it's the benefit of perspective that we're starting to get. You think back to his first year and the fact that he was all things to his football program, was willing to play any position on the field and do whatever he could on behalf of the team. And again, starting to establish the culture of what Sun Devil football was going to look like moving forward. And he's done that and more. And, I think back to moments at Camp T and how you just saw his leadership characteristics were really starting to play out. I think back to an early version of this show, I think going into Mississippi State, where he's walking in the building as we're recording a segment, jumps on, puts a headset on, and that's who he is. I know we'll talk about the conference championship, but we had our final coaches show down at Trophy in Chandler, and I remember seeing him pull into the parking lot and just everybody kind of looking at like, hey, Scott's here. And the mob scene that developed around him. And he was so gracious. He stopped to interact with everybody. He stopped to say hi to our 6-year-old son, Rhett, which was a cool moment. But just an incredible representation of our university. And he will be a Sun Devil Hall of Famer. We will immortalize him in the ways that we can, maybe even with a bobblehead at some point coming soon. So a little teaser there.
You got to get my hands on that one.
You got to do a bobblehead before you can do a statue. I think that's kind of the order of magnitude on how these things work.
That makes sense.
Just proud that he's a Sun Devil and proud that we're connected as a fan base to him, that he's a part of the lore of Sun Devil athletics moving forward, and can't wait to see what he does at the next level.
I know you said this, I think you were with Bickley and Murata, and you don't like to get yourself involved with other people's business, but come on, Cardinals. Let's make this happen. Come on, Arizona Cardinals.
It's there on a silver platter, right? It just makes sense. It worked great for Jake Plummer and Pat Tillman.
Right.
Let's do it with Scat as well.
I digress. Let's move on from the game a bit and talk about the experience. I know you said you met my mom, but it was Sun Devil Nirvana.
It was awesome.
In Atlanta. Marriott Marquis was bumping, the College Football Hall of Fame, the aquarium, and the pep rally. I mean, there were so many cool things going on, and Sun Devils ruled Atlanta, it seemed like, all over the city. How special was that?
Yeah, and I'll even take it back to the Territorial Cup in Tucson.
Sure.
And the road show, the amount of fans, it was an overwhelming Sun Devil crowd in Tucson. And it's the first time I've been in that football stadium. I've been on that campus quite a few times over the years. Never had either a reason or the courage to go into the football stadium, but I was excited to see the Sun Devil faithful that made that treacherous drive down to Tucson and were willing to, survive the elements to be there as we won the Territorial Cup, got it back. It's here in our Schaefer Hall of Fame in the Carson Center where it belongs. And then, fast forward to Arlington and the Big 12 Championship. We were riding back on the bus from Tucson when some of the other games played out. We knew we had clinched a chance to be in Arlington for the Big 12 game, and an incredible showing of Sun Devil fans out in Texas for the game. That was a fun thing to see, and quicker trip, right? We got in that Friday night, we went right to a Big 12 reception, and then we had the chance to bounce around really the Metroplex at a number of different areas that there were Sun Devil fans that Friday night before the game Saturday morning. And then, the Peach Bowl, just really, really thrilled with the turnout. There was a chance that we might stay home for the Fiesta Bowl. That didn't work out. But we went to the Peach Bowl. We had an incredible experience. The amount of people that were willing to make the investment, the time commitment, the financial commitment, the effort to be there. It's New Year's Day, so there's a lot going on that time of year with the holidays, but just very proud and thankful that the Sun Devil fan base showed up and showed out the way that they did in Atlanta. And it was so noticeable inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium when you looked around. We know Texas is a legacy program. We know they've got incredible fans, and they do, but I was so proud to look around and see the gold pom-poms and the maroon and gold t-shirts and great sweaters all over the stadium. It just was heartwarming to see everywhere we went. We got in that Sunday night, and from the moment we landed and got to the hotel through getting on the plane to come back, we ran into Sun Devil fans everywhere we went, and it was incredible turnout.
Yeah, it was incredible, and I think that you're exactly right talking about the investment as well, because around the holidays, going from Dallas to Atlanta, I mean, it was a big sacrifice that many Sun Devils had to make, but so many people had waited so long for a moment like that they would do it 10 times over.
And hey, we learned a lot. I think for our athletic department, we've got a lot of people in new roles kind of going through the bowl process and having that perspective and insight now that we can make great decisions moving forward. And we've said it a lot on this show and others that we want to make decisions that have our fans in mind. And having a bowl game on the other side of the country and travel considerations and trying to pull off events during the holidays, we learned so much, and there's so much value in those insights and takeaways that we bring back into our planning for next year and beyond, because again, we want to get back to bowl relevancy. We want to be in the national conversation and competing for a chance to go to the CFP, and we want our fans to be a part of these big moments as they happen. And so, aside from the experience, which was first class, there were a lot of really productive and helpful takeaways on how do we do it differently moving forward on all aspects of the operation. And again, shout out to the Peach Bowl. Gary Stokan became an immediate friend, longtime CEO of the Peach Bowl. He's been there for almost 30 years. He really stressed a message that I think resonated with our entire traveling party on attitude of gratitude. We're not guaranteed another day on the planet, but when you're in these moments and you get to reap the benefit of the hard work that's gone into it, specifically for the football team, have that attitude of gratitude. And one of the coolest memories that I'll take away was the night we got in. We had a welcome reception at the hotel. Gary got up, welcomed the team, and kind of mentioned that attitude of gratitude message. And then he said, hey, we've got footballs and Sharpies on your table. We want all of you to get signed by your teammates, signed by your brothers, because 10 years from now, 25 years from now, 50 years from now, you're going to be looking at this as a milestone moment and a great accomplishment in your life, and you're going to want to remember the brothers that helped you accomplish these moments. And so it was awesome to see the rest of the night, guys going from table to table and getting autographs. And I was with Coach Dillingham and President Crow, and people were coming up to get their autographs.
Nice.
Bree Dillingham, Coach's wife, was signing autographs. And so what a cool night. And again, I think the sentiment of attitude of gratitude is so apropos for what we just experienced.
That's a great attitude to take into life, regardless of where you are. But yeah, that's really special in the footballs. I think I saw that on social media. Really cool as well. Before we move on to segment 2, I think something that maybe gets lost in the shuffle to some fans because they're so hyper-focused on the Peach Bowl, they're so hyper-focused on Texas and college football playoff. First outright conference championship since 1996. That should not be overlooked. It's a beautiful trophy. So if you see the trophy, you're not going to forget. But that's also, I mean, that's something that will also immortalize this team forever in terms of what they were able to do and just dominating Iowa State. We're fitting so much into the show, so
hey, a lot of good to talk about, right?
A lot of good to talk about, but that is something that as well, that's something that is going to live on forever. The conference championship trophy was here in Tempe, but based on what they were able to do, win the first 16-team Big 12 title, I mean, It means a lot.
Yeah, I mean, think about that, a 16-team conference.
Crazy.
And, we were part of a 10-team conference, we were part of a 12-team conference, and now you get into a 16-team conference with, I think Oklahoma State was top 10 preseason, Kansas, Iowa State, K-State were all ranked.
Utah.
Going into the year, Utah, BYU. I mean, this was a gauntlet when we looked up in July at the schedule, and we had one of the hardest schedules in the conference, and a lot of pride comes into that accomplishment, and not only winning the conference, but in the fashion that we were able to win. Iowa State's a tremendous program, and they had one of the best seasons in their program history, and so to kind of get to halftime with a comfortable lead, and then that third quarter in the Big 12 game, in my opinion, was the best quarter of football we played the entire season. Just really unbelievable performance on both sides of the ball, and really solidified the pathway to just maintain it in the fourth quarter and know that we were headed to the CFP, which was amazing. But a lot of pride in that. Certainly the first year in the conference, you just don't know what to expect. And I remember a conversation I was having, on the football field with Chris Cartman from Sun Devil Source. He does an incredible job covering the program. And we were having a conversation. I said, hey, Chris, what do you think? You've been around this program a lot. You've seen a lot of these workouts. Just would value your opinion. And he said, I think it's a bowl team, but we don't know what the Big 12 looks like. If we were in the Pac-12 and it was a familiar landscape, you'd have a better basis for comparison. But in a new conference, in the transfer portal era, hard to really know kind of what we're going to be competing against. And so to not only get bowl eligible, we did that on that kind of wonky Oklahoma State weather lightning delayed game, relatively early on in the season in hindsight. A lot of pride into kind of just continuing to move forward. And thinking about it in the moment, as I mentioned it, I remember right after the game in Oklahoma State, a lot of guys were talking about, hey, we're going bowling. And I remember Sam Levitt either saying it or tweeting it, maybe he did both, of like, what does that mean? Like, we've got a bigger aspiration.
Right.
Like, we're not just trying to get bowl eligible. We want to go win a national championship. And so the emergence of Sam Levitt is another incredible storyline of this season, and him becoming a first-rate quarterback in college football, but also a leader in this program. And the fact that he's coming back is really exciting. But again, I'm rambling, but there's so much to cover. There's so much to be proud of, and they're all highlights.
We could sit here and talk about this season for probably 2 hours. I know you've done probably 55 interviews about this season. You, though, are getting good at this media stuff, because you just segued and teased our next segment where we talk about the roster coming back, including Sam Levitt and the coaching staff as well. We'll be right back on Sun Devil Extra.